Hello, welcome to another tonalist landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy. And yes, it's more umber, but I think you'll like this one. In fact, when I started the whole series, this was the first one I did. And I knew I wanted to do some scumbling and some glazing on it, so that's why the big delay. A lot of times, I really like to just try and get the painting done all in one go, or maybe an underpainting and then a full color. And if that looks good, then I generally try and just leave the painting alone, let it live. But in the cases where there's certain effects or certain things that I can't do that way, that I can't do in a direct manner, then I've got to wait. I've got to wait for paintings to dry. A lot of times if I'm going to do glazing, I like to hit it with a coat of liquid in between so that everything I do is reversible. I've got a bunch of these little umber studies in the studio that I hit with liquid over the weekend, and they're dry. I haven't been able to get back in there and paint because of my schedule tearing me apart. But I'll be getting in there this afternoon, and I might just spend the day doing a little bit of glazing and stuff. And I think what I'll be doing there is I'm probably just going to throw that video in the members area. It'll just be one glaze, one scumble after the next, all in one video, because they won't be, it's not like it's going to take a ton of time to throw a glaze on a 5x7 and do a few modifications. But what I can say, sometimes what really pulls things together, especially in these sort of monochromatic paintings, is a little glaze at the end can just make everything close up and feel completely finished. So it's definitely something to look at. I wouldn't say it's as critical, say, if you're doing full color painting, unless you're trying to do the tobacco stain thing, which you're glazing with I don't know, transparent earth yellow or raw umber or something, and it'll just give that painting that old look. But I don't know. I'd say let the painting get an old look on its own. In the case of these, though, it'll really pull everything together. Because actually, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is in fact, you'll see it at the end of this video. A very short little segment of glazing. You'll see the painting has a chalky feel, and that's from the scumbling. I had to let that dry. And the glazing is one of the best ways to get rid of a chalky feel, where the white's kind of hanging on to a kind of white chalky quality. The glazing will get rid of that, 9 times out of 10. So stay tuned to the end of the video. You got a reason to watch the whole thing. Hey, you don't need to tip on out after 5 or 6 minutes. We'll see. Maybe I'm gonna get back into some Carlson today. We'll see how it goes. I have been working on my other project, and we'll see if we get into Carlson, because one of the things I wanted to talk about was materials. I get more questions about the paints I'm using, the colors I'm using, than anything else. And since we're always getting new subscribers to the channel, it's always good to bring up this information again. My strong recommendation to you, if you're a painter just starting out, is that you start with a limited palette. And the palette I would recommend would be titanium white, cadmium yellow, alizarin crimson, phthalo green, phthalo blue, or ultramarine blue if you like that color, and then black. That would be all the colors I would use. You go, well, what about burnt sienna, Mac? Well, you can get a pretty decent burnt sienna by mixing alizarin crimson and cadmium yellow. You can get a decent orange by mixing less of those two together. And the one thing I might add early on might be a cadmium red, depending on the types of paintings you want to do. But my feeling is that the crimson can get you most of the red tones you might need. It's more flexible. And so you might go, well, why are you taking all my colors away, bruh? Why are you doing that? you know, because you're the professional and you get to have all the colors and I get none. Let me tell you why. I'll tell you why. It can be, in fact, so many, I've seen it in student after student, and over the years, they think that they can't do something if they don't have a tube of a certain color. And you know what? Art supply stores, they love this because those people keep them in business. And what happens is they'll buy the tube, they really don't know what to do with it. Maybe they squeeze it out anyway, or they try and use it, and they get a bunch of ugly paintings with no harmony because they don't really know what colors to use where. And I think this is one of the main reasons why I get that question. So my recommendation is narrow down your palette, you know, really, really narrow it down. And that way you get to know those 5 or 6 colors extremely well. Now, what would I add to that? You know, if I well, the first things I started with a limited palette, and I did a lot of paintings that way. The first color that I added was yellow ochre because of the opacity, and it's just a really handy color for landscape painting. And then burnt sienna, that was one I added right off the bat. And I think the blue I started with was ultramarine, but I like phthalo better. I actually moved to cobalt blue for a long time. Then got into phthalo later, but if it was between phthalo and cobalt, I would go with phthalo because I think it's very flexible blue, it's very pretty blue, and it's also quite reasonable in the cost too. So you'll see a lot of minimalist palettes out there do not include black, and that's because black is evil, you know. And no, the reason for that is that in the hands of an amateur, black can be a disaster. And that they just start throwing it into things to make things darker instead of just what most teachers want you to do is they want you to mix that darker color with your blue and your red and, you know, your bits of this and that, and actually mix the color, not just take the color you've got and darken it with black, because that does make things ugly. The reason for using black is, first of all, the best green you can make would be, well, actually I don't usually use the cad yellow, but I would in this minimal palette. I would use cad yellow and black to make my primary green. And you go, Mike, why you got the phthalo green then, bro? You know, it's okay you call me bro. You can call me Uncle Mike too if you want. The phthalo green is to make, you can make a lot of very interesting colors by mixing the phthalo green and the crimson together. And the phthalo green would give you the ability to make like a cool green. By what I'd do if I wanted to make a cool green with that minimal palette would be like cad yellow, black, and then a little phthalo green, as opposed to phthalo green and yellow together, which just make an icky color. That would be very nasty. But the black, since you know it kills the color, it makes the color muddy. There's a lot of times you want muddy or dirty color, but it should be with intention, not because you're trying to make things darker. So that's a rookie mistake, but I mean, if you've got a teacher, they should be cluing you into that, not taking the black away. And there's so much flexibility that can come into play just with having black and white, making a neutral gray, which you can tint any number of ways that you want to with the rest of your palette. Super flexible, almost impossible to do with so say you don't have the black, you can make the chromatic black, mixing the alizarin crimson and the phthalo green together. Yeah, that's gonna you can make grays out of that, but they're kind of weird. They're kind of funky. They're not very neutral, I guess. They always have a cast, and so you could even get by without the phthalo green, to be honest. I mean, how would I cool things? I would use the phthalo blue to cool things off instead. Phthalo blue with a tiny bit of yellow in it. But the minimal palettes, what you find yourself doing is adding little tiny bits of color and pushing it this way, pushing it that way. In the process of doing that, you learn so much about those pigments. And So it's better to have mastery of a few things than to have this huge armament of all these colors that you really don't know when to use, don't know how to use. It's overwhelming. And so that's why I recommend that. So I went off on a huge tangent there, but it's good information. And let's talk about the kind of what's the palette in this one, man? The palette on this one was burnt umber, lead white. I used transparent earth yellow to give me slight tints of yellow, and I believe I used there was no yellow ochre, so I think I used some raw sienna as well. And of course I have the I don't believe it was Mars black in this case. I think it's ivory black. And so talking about some scumbling, because we're going to get into that. You see these trees in the back there. I haven't started working on them yet. We're going right into them. I want those to have some mist over them. So what I was thinking was scumble. Hey, we're going to start scumbling right now. We're in the portion of the video we're going to scumble. And you can see it's going to have a great effect. It's going to take things, and one of the reasons I kind of delayed on putting this painting out is I wanted to play that effect up even more, which I may do today, and I may include that in the members area video, where I'm basically just, I've got like 10 or 11 or 12 of these things. I'm just going to be going through and going boom, 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 because they all have a good coat of liquid on them now. Now this did not have a good coat of liquid on it. What I did was I did a quick glaze and then started scumbling, and I think that was one of the reasons. See, I'm kind of doing some scumbling now, and the way you do scumbling is by so what's the difference between scumbling and glazing, you might wonder. Glazing is when you use a transparent pigment with some oil to get a tinting effect. Scumbling is when you use an opaque pigment or semi-opaque pigment with a bit of oil to get kind of a hazy effect. So it's good for things like pushing, like you can see I'm trying to introduce some foggy quality to these trees and not have them. I want to push them back, and you can see it did push them right back, where I think I won't go so far as to say messed up, but I think had I coated the painting with some liquid, I would have had more control. Because what happens when you don't do the liquid coat is you lay the paint right on that surface, and it's going to have an effect that's not actually that reversible. What I like about the liquid is that I could rub it all off and start again, or I could lay things in super heavy and then really back off, knowing I've got that flexibility. So just some tips there. Now you can also see that chalky effect I'm talking about in those trees, where it's kind of holding on to that sort of whitish effect, and what I really wanted was a bit more of a warmth, but that's cool, so I figured not a problem, and again, I didn't wait to do a liquid coat there either. I just decided, hey, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do, and that's what I did. But even at this level, even at this state, the painting looks pretty good. It's a saleable little painting. And I should say it's based off an old turn of the century, last century pictorialist photograph, and I really like it. I want to maybe do a little bit more to it, but I thought, maybe I will, maybe I won't. So it's time to present it to you, because I think it's a strong little painting, quite saleable. Looks nice in a little frame, and it's evocative. It's evocative. That's today's word. It's evocative. It's evoking, a nice feeling, a nice quality, and of course riffing on the umber, right? Riffing on the umber. And I don't know how many more umber paintings. I have a bunch more to show you. I don't know if it's the greatest thing for the channel, but hey, roll along with me, because there's always information. It may not even directly tie to the painting, as in the case of today where I just riffed on minimalist palettes. Okay, now we're going to do glazing. Ready? Okay, you ready? That's a few days later now, and you can see me talking. So there is a live version of this video in the members area, where you're going to get a lot more blow by blow in the studio. That's nearly 2 hours long. That is the glazing, and you can see it just help get rid of that chalky quality. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Like I mentioned, you can join the members area. There's tons of live videos there where you're a fly on the wall in the studio, watching it happen in real time. Also, you can tip on over to my website, landscapepainter.co.nz, buy a painting, or those of you that have been giving me donations, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. And until I come back with another video, do me a favor, please take good care. Stay out of trouble.